Hello you guys, my name is Susan Morales. For those of you that are new here, I make videos about Christianity, what it's like as a Christian to navigate through what goes on a daily basis, including politics. And today I want to talk to you guys starting off with the topic of Ukraine, the United States, Russia, Israel, Gaza, Hamas specifically, and a few other things. This is just going to be one of those chatty videos about what's going on and how a Christian processes through these things. How does Christianity intersect with the world that I live in? And how can I learn to follow Jesus in an everyday kind of way? If you have watched my videos before and you enjoy the content that I make, I would really appreciate it if you would become a member of this channel. I'll leave the link in the description, or you can become a patron, and I'll also leave a link in the description if you prefer going down that route. You would be giving the amount that you would like to give monthly. I will put that towards the website that I'm working on. I want to build that website so it's something that we can navigate through, share with your family or friends, and see a bunch of interviews, learn more about what Christianity is about. I'm just going to share with you what has been going on in my mind these last days. Specifically the situation in the Oval Office that happened with President Trump and President Zelensky, the Ukrainian president. I saw the shorter clip, and then I saw the medium clip, and then I saw the longer full, I think it's like 40 something minutes of that press conference that has been shared now and seen by many. If you haven't seen that, I'll just fill you in briefly. The United States was supposed to sign a deal with Zelensky, Ukraine, and it was a deal where the United States would be able to get minerals from Ukraine, and that was a strategic move on Trump's end, because instead of the way that Biden handled the situation in Ukraine, the war, where Biden was, from what we can tell, Biden was only giving our tax money to Ukraine to fight this war. It almost seemed like they were our proxy, like we were using Ukraine in order to fight Russia, at least as far as, funding goes. Trump instead made a point, and obviously we need to fact check all of these things. And so this is only what I've heard here and there. One thing I heard from Trump was he was saying we want to be treated equally as the Europeans are. It seems that Europeans, whatever they give to the Ukrainian people financially, they get back because it's more in the form of a loan. Trump, his whole thing has been America first, so anything that we do in the global world has to make sense for America. America needs to get back, get the best deal possible. Things have to be fair. We can't just be like charity, we can't be giving like we would to a charity. We need to make like this deal, for example. It was strategic also in that Ukraine doesn't just want money. They wouldn't just want this deal. They want security. And what that implies, from what I've heard, some men commenting about this, not sure if they're accurate, but they seem to think that security means that if things escalated, we would have to put boots on the ground, to fight against Russia, or, it could be the escalation into a World War III situation, which nobody wants, especially Americans, right? So Trump's plan is that if we get this deal, we would have American workers or people that are working in America's interest, financial interest, where these mineral, I hope I'm saying it right, I think it's mineral, where these things are located are exactly around the area where Russia is threatening, I guess. to invade Ukraine. And so if you have now the USA's financial interest there, then Russia will not invade or hurt, US workers, because then they're starting a war against the United States. And up until right now, Russia isn't trying to start a war with the US. So in the press conference that Trump had with
Zelensky,
Ukraine's president, Zelensky was saying that, no, not so clearly, but he was implying, we don't want to sign a deal without getting security. I think that's what he was implying. Or he was saying, we're going to talk about it after this press conference. We really need to talk about security. And Trump was saying, no, we can't even talk about security. I don't want to talk about security, or whatever that's going to look like on the United States' behalf. He was essentially saying the security you would get is this deal, and for the reasons I just explained. That's the rationale. What happened, which shocked the world, my perspective, I was shocked that this actually happened, because I have never seen someone disrespect a US president so publicly in the way that Zelensky did in this press conference. And I think, first of all, it's very important to point out that there are a lot of conservatives and Democrats, I guess, but specifically from what I've seen online, there are many Republicans that have endorsed this belief that actually Russia, Putin, is not that bad of a guy. Tucker Carlson, very, very famous commentator for Republicans. He used to work for Fox. I guess he was canceled for whatever reasons. He has been on this seemingly just agenda to portray Putin and Russia as this. It's not as bad as we think. We think that blah, blah, blah about Russia, but the reality is. And then what was interesting, though, was because Tucker Carlson had interviewed Putin, and that, I think, impressed everyone, that he was able to get such a world leader. He did something very political, and of course the government's going to be interested in that conversation too, right after he did that interview, he went into this grocery store, and he was talking about how impressed he was by the grocery store and the carts and the prices as opposed to the United States, when Biden was the president. But what was interesting was that after he did those couple of things and he was sharing that information on Twitter, on X, then a day later or so, it came out that Putin's political rival, who was imprisoned, died all of a sudden, and everyone assumes that Putin killed him while he was in prison. And there's a whole documentary about that man that you could go see. I forget his name, but yeah, it talks about there is a history of Putin doing bad things to his rivals. So lo and behold, Putin eventually he won the elections, and so it's did he really win if he eliminated his political rival? Well, anyways, all that to say that there are some conservatives that are trying to talk well about Russia, and in the same breath saying Ukraine,
Zelensky,
Zelensky is the real bad guy. And so you have that push where people that know that Putin is actually not a nice guy, and they're annoyed by these conservatives that are talking as if he was. Those people, if you talk a little bit negative about Ukraine, they might jump into conclusions and be like, you're one of those Putin lovers, the defenders, apologists of Putin. So I just want to be clear, no, that's not my position, and this video is not about Russia necessarily. It's more about the relations between Ukraine
Zelensky
leader and the United States leader. That's all we're saying in this video. The press conference shows Trump and Zelensky. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Probably not. Sorry if I'm saying it wrong.
Zelensky.
It shows them, Trump taking questions. Trump, you're in America. He's the guy in charge in the room. And from what I observed, it's I feel like I'm gonna say it wrong, so I'm just gonna say Ukraine's president. He seemed to want to talk a lot and answer a lot, and I'm not sure if this is how it's normally handled or if he was inserting himself more than what's polite in politics. But it seemed that, you come to a country, you have to follow their customs, right? Same as we would if we go to another country. Like, you have to be mindful that there are certain implications, there are certain ways of showing disrespect, certain ways of showing respect. The way you are supposed to show respect, and pause on the whole Trump being a very disrespectful character and what had happened prior. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the way you show respect on behalf of Ukraine, you sit down next to Trump, you let Trump answer the questions, you let him address the country however he wants to present what is going on behind closed doors with Ukraine and Russia. And you ask if you can comment. Sure, okay. You have the next thing that was scheduled was a lunch. So it was supposed to be like a lunch with, I think it was like around 16 or so people. And that's where you discuss, negotiate, share your concerns, maybe lose your temper, but it's more of a private setting. And after that, hopefully an agreement was made, and then you publicly sign this agreement, the minerals agreement. That didn't happen. Instead, what ended up happening was that Ukraine's president was doing a lot of talking. So much so that it seems that the vice president of the United States, he forcefully, I guess, he was so wanting to address or follow up a question that Trump had answered. And he wanted to say something to the effect that we've tried to be the strong guy, the tough guy through Biden. America has tried that. It hasn't worked. This war has continued all these years. And now it's time for diplomacy. Something to that effect. And then I think this is where Zelensky was impolite, politically disrespectful, because he asked the vice president a question about what he just had said. Now, I think that's very inappropriate because, like I said, there is a way of doing this press conference, and it's not to ask questions publicly in that manner. It got heated, being a very straightforward person, which he ordinarily in prior debates or speaking for a news station, he usually seems very polite. He says things very properly. And in this, for whatever reason, I guess because maybe he was tired of how Zelensky was doing a lot of talking, the things he was saying, being very resistant to what they were trying to do for his country, He said things in such a straightforward way, provocative even, because sometimes when you say something so straightforward, it can be taken, as an insult and things like that. So he went the route of, I think it's very disrespectful for you to try to have these conversations in front of the American public. In other words, instead of doing things, in a few minutes when we were going to have some privacy and we can actually try to hash things out there. He's like, have you even said thank you to the president in this meeting? And so, it just became very, Ukraine's president was like, in other words, he's like, how can you talk about our problems when you haven't even been to Ukraine? Because he had pointed out you're having problems recruiting people, and so you should be more thankful to this president that is saving your country from the war, from the terrible situation it's in. And so it got heated, and Trump, when Zelensky said something about, you guys don't feel the war, because you guys have this ocean separating you from, these type of threats. But you will feel it in the future, something like that. And so Trump right away, he's like, you're not in any position to say how we're going to feel. And it just went like downhill from there. Trump had to be the tougher guy pretty much in the room. It resulted in Trump essentially kicking Ukraine out of the White House, and they didn't have lunch. They didn't sign the deal. And it seems that they were like asking to be allowed back into the White House, but Trump had released a statement saying because the U.S. is supporting Ukraine, Zelensky has become emboldened and he is not ready to have a conversation about peace. When he's ready to talk peace, when he's ready for peace, he will be welcomed back into the White House. All of that was very disappointing, especially when you hear the politicians who, and I think this is why J.D. Vance was very frustrated. One person pointed out that Zelensky didn't address J.D. Vance as Mr. Vice President out of respect.
What kind of diplomacy, J.D., you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
And these are just little things that you come to a place, you have to respect their ways, as simple as these things are. Not talking over, not debating in what's supposed to be a press conference, holding your differences to yourself, and then you could always have your own press conference in your own country or whatever. He came across very, very disrespectful, and so like I heard from one of the people from the US that was sent to Ukraine to try to make this deal happen, that Zelensky was just not interested in signing, and he had multiple times where he could have signed. Even he had a meeting with, I think it was Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance, and he declined to sign with them also. I think it was, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, I believe it happened. And so supposedly this time when he came to the US, he was supposed to sign. So I think that was behind why you could see in the video Marco Rubio even slouching, just very he looked very tired to me. I was like, oh man, he's probably very stressed out because he doesn't look like his usual self. I'm like, he's gonna age very quickly doing the job he's doing. But I don't know, you never know how their nights are and things like that. We don't know what goes on in the government, right? So J.D. Vance also, they were probably like, after all of those minutes, just hearing how combative Zelensky was being, disrespectful, I think they were just beyond upset at that point. And so things escalated. Feelings got the best of them in that situation. And it seems that Trump wanted Americans to see what they were dealing with as far as Zelensky goes. So, Trump had a lot of influence. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not. My guess is that most of us would have preferred that maybe Vance could have been the bigger person, and instead of pointing out how terrible he's being, because Vance accused Zelensky of manipulating men into war, something about taking them on a propaganda tour or something like that. And there have been some videos that are being shared on X about, they look like man kidnappings pretty much, that they're just picking them up and forcing them to join. I don't know how accurate those videos are or not. I'm waiting for someone reliable to confirm that they're real. I don't know if this guy, this is a really bad person, I mean, I can't understand why someone that seems to be very real, like Vance, would react that way in the presence of someone that he's like, this is a bad guy, you know? Oh yeah, so in all fairness, we're talking about respect, right? And I think in one of my other videos I had said I really want to learn the guy code. Like, how do you talk to guys? You know, because guys talk to each other and I don't know, somehow they work things out. And so I think guys, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems that the guy code is respect. And even the Bible teaches us, wives, respect your husbands. So, you know, you're a woman, you're going to start living with the male sex. So here is some advice. How do you talk? How do you deal with a man? Respect him. So I think it's safe to say, yeah, you need respect in business dealings and political situations like this. So we're all talking about how disrespectful Zelensky was. And it's not to excuse his behavior, because it doesn't matter how disrespectful someone is towards you, you can always choose to be respectful, right? Be the bigger person. So this doesn't excuse it. But, I mean, in all fairness, we can say that Trump was not necessarily the most respectful in our definitions of respect, because it seems that I saw a few people on Twitter talking about how they were upset that Trump, a few days before this situation, he was implying, I don't know if it's one of these situations where Trump says something but he means something else, but people take it like if he said it, meant it this way. Probably is, probably not, because here's what happened. He had said in one of his, you know, recorded things that Zelensky, something about elections, and that he was like he was a dictator, and that he said something like that he started this war. And people were like, wait a minute, no, you can't say that the Ukrainian president is a dictator, and you can't say that he started the war because Russia invaded Ukraine. So when they asked him that in that Oval Office press conference, they asked him, do you still think that, you know, he is a dictator? And you could just tell, it's like you caught Trump with his hand in the cookie jar, and he paused and he said something like, and then he said, did I say that? I can't believe I said that. And he kind of held back a smile and he said, next question.
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
So there is this thing going around that supposedly, unofficially, Trump is expecting a public apology from the Ukrainian president. And the Ukrainian president that same day had gone on an interview with, I think his name is Brett. That interviewer attempted to get Zelensky to apologize to Trump or to America for his behavior. He tried to make him understand like that was inappropriate, and do you regret that? To me, what I gather from, it's hard, right? Because there's a cultural like barrier there, language sometimes. We might understand it as a way that maybe they don't mean it. But anyway, from what I gather, Zelensky seems to feel secure that the Ukrainian people and the American people have a history, have history together. And so it doesn't matter how Zelensky and Trump get along. And to me, I don't know if that's understood more like in Europe or, Ukraine, but in America, our culture, it seems that we identify very much. Like if you attack our leader, it's like you are attacking us because he represents us. And so, and obviously this is like for half of the people, right, that voted for him. I guess the majority, you could say. And think about the soldiers too, like the level of respect that our military has for their commander-in-chief. And if you go after Trump with so little respect, what are you communicating about, to the soldiers? To, like, you just can't. Like, we in our country, we show respect in the political sphere. Like, we would also have an issue with it if, for example, it had happened to Biden or like whoever. We would have an issue with another country treating our leader that way. Now, American to American, we have no problem with disrespect necessarily. Like, it's just assumed, at this point, unfortunately. But foreign leader doing it to our leader, it's just not acceptable. So I wanted to say, well, in all fairness, yeah, Trump said a few things as well. I had been trying to learn more and more and just try to figure out, like, what was wrong in this situation. And where I landed about this is, first of all, like, I hear people saying things like Trump was morally wrong for how he treated someone asking for help. To me, as a Christian, I'm not sure I hold people that are not necessarily Christian. I don't think Trump displays or portrays himself as a Christian. He says things that sound Christian, but you'll know by their fruit and like their character, right? And obviously it's complicated when you're a president. To me, it just seems that Trump does whatever he has to do, whatever he has to say to get the goal that he wants. And to his credit, his goals seem to be good goals. For example, this trying to create peace with Russia and Ukraine for the sake of no more people dying, that's a good thing. That's a good goal. Trying to get money in this situation, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's just one of those, like, marriage things, right? Like, sometimes you have a spender, sometimes you have a saver, and it's like, sure, we would like to get all these things, we would like to give all this money away, but we just can't afford it, and so your first job as president is to take care of your own house. And if your house is like headed towards bankruptcy, then you have to find a way to do what's in your country's, in the world's best interest, while at the same time doing it in a way that is smart. That's what I think about that situation. We'll see. I'm hopeful that we'll get that deal. And it's kind of nice too, knowing that Trump isn't just going to continue to pour out more and more money, or, in whatever way that translates, like whether through weapons or whatever. It feels good to feel that there's someone in the White House that is interested in the American people first. Like, to me, it was mind-boggling how much money we had for other countries, but Biden couldn't. He didn't anticipate having money saved for the natural disasters that happen every single year in America. To me, that's just not right. We need to pray. As Christians, we need to pray. What I was going to say about Trump, I don't really hold him to the same standards I would hold someone else, another president that was saying that he lives according to these are this is his box of morality, and you can actually hold him to that. I just keep thinking, don't put your trust on a president, don't put your trust on world leaders, or even the intelligence of human beings, the kindness or whatever. Just keep praying for God to ultimately take care of us, because if not for God's protection and blessing, America wouldn't be the superpower that it is today, you know? And even if like we were in a World War III situation, God would protect us if we are humble and we continue to seek Him and we continue to pray, you know, for our leaders like He instructs us to. I also wanted to talk just a little bit about Israel. They ended their ceasefire agreement that they were operating. I think it was the same ceasefire deal since Biden. I'm not sure on the details, but it just ended. It seemed that Trump had recommended Israel continue the ceasefire since it's like a Muslim holiday, Ramadan, I think. It's like a 30-day thing where they're supposed to fast certain hours. Hamas rejected that agreement because it was an agreement like of releasing more alive hostages, something like that, and I forget the details, but now there is no ceasefire anymore, and Israel has the full support, I assume, of America, and their hands are not as tied as when Biden was president. So it will be interesting to see how things resolve themselves, I think, because I feel like there are a lot of people that when you give, they become entitled, they become spoiled. I think that's what we're seeing globally. Like a lot of people expect the United States to just give and take nothing in return, including like the situation where Israel is probably being seen as the bad guys right now because they have stopped humanitarian aid. I forget until, like, if they said until this happens, and so right now it's very easy to say, oh, they're starving the refugees, and I think there's this unspoken thing where people are saying, you, Israel, have to feed us while you're fighting us, and our leaders are not responsible for us. It's just like this huge entitlement, and instead just surrender and give back the hostages, you know. And I read somewhere that they were talking about how Israel is breaking, you know, like war rules or something, and then someone said, well, what about you guys taking all of these hostages, you know, like you're breaking the rules too. I don't know. All I know is that I'm tired of the bad guys being treated like these spoiled babies. The thing with Ukraine also, like, if you want help, just sign the agreement, you know? I do want to learn more about what is the situation in Ukraine, because I don't want to be like insensitive too. And so it would be nice also to know, like, how do we pray for you guys? If you are from there, or you are more educated on the situation in Ukraine or in Gaza, let me know how, you know, I as a Christian can pray for you guys, because I think that if a war is not necessary, then it needs to end like as soon as possible. So those are the things I was going to talk about. I don't think there's anything else that I need to share. I mean, that's mostly what's been on my mind lately. And for those of you who kind of have a hard time with, like, I don't know how to describe it, like just some struggles, challenges that maybe a lot of other people don't, just want to encourage you to take good care of yourself. Make sure that you're doing the things that you know you have to do. And even if it's not something that you're used to doing it, just pay extra attention to doing those things, making those appointments, and eventually it will turn into your new normal, and you can be healthier including reading the Bible every day, praying, spending some time in worship with God. Those are very important things, and something that we actually have to be intentional about, because it's very easy to ignore the Holy Spirit when he's like, you haven't sang, or you haven't read your Bible today, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll do it later. And so don't ignore the Holy Spirit when he is prompting you to do the things that you need the most. Alright, you guys, thanks so much for watching this. And like I said, if you would like to support what I do, please go to the description area of this video and click on those links and see if you would consider becoming a monthly supporter. And don't forget to join my newsletter. I will be sending one out this month. So I'll talk to you guys on the next video. Bye.
Zelensky.
Joy.